parents took my sister on vacation instead of me, and she ended up ruining the trip and getting arrested. Now they finally see her true colors. I'm 23, and have a younger sister, Lisa, 18, who, in my eyes, is the embodiment of everything wrong. For years, I've tried to get my parents to recognize her manipulative behavior, but they always shrugged it off, until recently. To give you some background, my relationship with my parents has always been rocky, largely because of Lisa. They idolize her. Lisa was born after my mother experienced a devastating miscarriage, so when Lisa came along, they treated her like a miracle. She became the center of their world. When we were kids, I loved my sister, but over time I started to see how manipulative she could be. She had a way of twisting events to make herself look innocent, and she excelled at playing the victim. Once, on my birthday, I was given an antique pocket watch from our grandparents, a family heirloom that meant the world to me. Lisa, jealous, asked me to share it. When I refused, since it was a personal gift, she didn't let it go. That night, she put a spider in my bed, fully aware of my fear of them. I woke up in terror, only to have Lisa feign concern in front of my parents. But when we were alone, she smirked and admitted it was payback for not sharing the watch. She pulled stunts like this regularly. Once, I invited a boy I liked over to watch a movie, but Lisa, accidentally, spilled juice all over my carefully chosen outfit. She then spent the entire evening embarrassing me in front of him, even going so far as to suggest he could do better. Unsurprisingly, he never came over again. I tried telling my parents about these incidents, but they always brushed it off, saying she was just immature or didn't mean any harm. Over time, I gave up complaining because it was pointless. Lisa remained their golden child, while I became the family outcast. Fast forward to now. I've moved out and work in San Francisco, maintaining limited contact with my parents. Meanwhile, Lisa stayed home after high school, attending community college. Our paths rarely crossed, which suited me just fine. But when my father had a near-fatal heart attack recently, I rushed home. Thankfully, he survived, but the experience left him wanting to spend more time with family. Despite my misgivings about being around Lisa, I stayed to support my parents. One morning, my dad suggested a family vacation, something we hadn't done in years. Although I was hesitant, I agreed for his sake. Lisa, of course, wasn't happy about it, but she went along. Everything was planned, including the tickets and accommodations. I even took time off work to make sure I could go. But when we got to the airport, I found out my flight ticket had been mysteriously cancelled. My dad was confused, swearing he had booked it. As I tried to figure out what had happened, I saw Lisa smirking, that same smug grin she always had when she pulled one of her tricks. I immediately knew she had cancelled my ticket. When I confronted her, she just smiled, denying everything. My parents, naturally, dismissed my accusations and blamed the airline for the mix-up. There were no available flights that day, so I would have had to travel alone the next day if I wanted to join them. My parents, instead of suggesting we figure it out together, made it clear they were fine going without me. Hurt but unsurprised, I watched as they left for their family vacation without me. I returned home to San Francisco and decided to make the most of my time off, reconnecting with old friends and relaxing on my own. Despite everything, I tried not to let it bother me too much. But then, a few days into their trip, I woke up to multiple missed calls from my mom. Worried that something had happened to my dad, I called back immediately. My mom picked up, sounding incredibly stressed. I asked if everything was okay, and my mother explained, sounding shaken, that something disturbing had occurred. Over the past few days, my parents had noticed that my father's heart medications were disappearing. Given his recent heart attack, he couldn't afford to miss a dose. They were in a foreign country, unsure if they could even find the same medication locally. My parents were alarmed and searched their hotel room, but found nothing. My mother had gone into Lisa's hotel room to borrow some sunscreen while she was out, and to her shock, she found the missing medications stashed in Lisa's bedside table. Horrified, she immediately called my father. They both realized that their beloved daughter, the miracle child, had been deliberately putting my father's health at risk. When my mom called me to ask what they should do, I told her not to confront Lisa until they returned home. I knew how manipulative Lisa could be, and confronting her without careful thought would likely lead to more lies and excuses. However, things must have escalated that night, because my father called me later, his voice trembling. Lisa had been arrested. Apparently, when my parents confronted her, Lisa exploded in a fit of rage, hurling insults at my father for inviting me on the vacation. She told them that if they continued their relationship with me, she would make them regret it. Her tantrum escalated until hotel staff called the authorities. When the police arrived, Lisa refused to calm down, hurling insults at them as well, leading to her arrest. My parents were left in a terrible situation, and to make matters worse, they soon discovered their passports and wallets had vanished. Lisa had hidden or discarded them, leaving my parents stranded without identification or money. For the first time, they saw their angelic daughter for who she truly was. My mother, who had defended Lisa for years, called me in tears, begging for help. She finally understood what I had been saying all along. I assured her I would send them money through Western Union, but told them they needed to find their passports first. I was confident Lisa hadn't destroyed them. As my parents pieced together what was happening, they began to apologize for everything, for all the years they had sided with Lisa and made me feel like the outsider. Although I wanted to help, part of me couldn't ignore the years of neglect and favoritism I'd experienced because of Lisa. Now, they were asking for forgiveness after leaving me out of this vacation and facing the consequences of their own blind loyalty. Update 1. The situation only grew worse after Lisa was released from jail the next day. My parents confronted her, demanding to know where their passports were, and threatened to involve the authorities again. Lisa, cornered, eventually revealed where she had hidden them. Once they returned home, my parents told Lisa that she needed to move out. They had finally reached their breaking point. It was clear she could no longer live under their roof, especially after endangering my father's health. But this triggered yet another meltdown. Lisa screamed at them, accusing them of pushing her to the edge by inviting me on the trip. She insisted they disown me, claiming she was the only child they needed. It was in this moment that my parents realized the depth of her jealousy and resentment. As they tried to reason with her, she turned even more vicious, threatening to spread lies about them. She claimed she'd go to the police and accuse them of neglect and mistreatment, fully intending to ruin their reputations. My parents, respected doctors, were terrified. The thought of facing false accusations was unbearable. In the days that followed, Lisa's behavior spiraled even further. She began making their lives a nightmare, hiding their car keys, throwing tantrums when she didn't get her way, and even breaking dishes. My mother, exhausted and broken, called me after yet another blow-up. Lisa had thrown a fit at dinner when my mom refused to cook for her, smashing furniture before retreating to her room and blasting loud music, depriving my parents of any peace or sleep. The situation has escalated to a point where I fear for my parents' safety. While I had once hoped they'd see Lisa for who she truly was, I'm now worried that her behavior could cause real harm. I'm torn between wanting to help and knowing that my presence could provoke her further. I'm doing everything I can to persuade my parents to consult with a lawyer so we can find a permanent solution to this crisis. It feels like the legal route is the only way to ensure their safety and restore peace to our family. Update 2. As many of you predicted, Lisa has been arrested again. Her behavior had escalated to the point of no return. One night, during another explosive argument, she came at our parents with a knife, terrified for their lives. They had no choice but to call the police. The officers arrived swiftly, arresting Lisa on charges of assault. With Lisa in custody, my parents knew they had to take decisive action. They consulted an attorney, who advised them on the steps to evict her from the house. Although this decision broke their hearts, it was the only way to ensure their safety. My parents didn't want to press charges, they just wanted her to leave peacefully. After bailing her out of jail, they handed Lisa a formal eviction notice. The process wasn't easy, but it was necessary. They wanted to make sure everything was done legally, so Lisa couldn't challenge the eviction. The next step involved filing a lawsuit against her in court. It was a painful moment for my parents, taking their own daughter to court, but they knew they had no other option. Eventually, the court issued an order requiring Lisa to vacate the house by next week. My parents can finally begin to breathe again. With Lisa out of the house, there is hope that peace will return. They've been through a lot, and I've decided to bring them to San Francisco for a few weeks. They need a break, a chance to relax and recuperate after all the emotional strain Lisa has caused. It will also give us a chance to spend some quality time together, to rebuild what we had lost. Update 3. Many of you have suggested that Lisa may have underlying mental health issues, and we've considered this. However, since she's an adult, we can't force her to seek treatment, given her violent tendencies. We're hesitant to push her into anything that might worsen the situation. As I mentioned, my parents flew down to San Francisco to stay with me. During dinner one evening, they finally opened up about their regrets. Their voices were laced with humility and sorrow as they apologized for the years of favoritism toward Lisa. My father admitted that they were blind to Lisa's true nature and deeply regretted dismissing my concerns. My mother, with trembling words, echoed his sentiments, acknowledging how they had failed me. I appreciated their apologies, but I didn't hold back. I shared with them the painful memories of years of torment, memories they were completely unaware of. My parents listened, shocked at how much I had endured. It was a sobering moment for them, realizing the depth of my isolation within our family. They explained that their attachment to Lisa stemmed from her being their miracle baby, the child they never thought they'd have. But that didn't excuse the years of neglect I suffered. While their apology was genuine, and I could see their remorse, it wasn't easy for me to forgive them. I told them it would take time to rebuild trust, but we agreed to work on healing together. For now, I'm making the most of their visit and cherishing the time we have to reconnect. Update 4. The days we've spent together in San Francisco have been healing for all of us. We've explored the city, shared meals, and, most importantly, started to rebuild the frayed bonds between us. My parents and I are slowly mending our relationship after years of hurt caused by their favoritism toward Lisa. They've come to realize that spending time with me wasn't just about escaping Lisa, it was about rekindling the family they nearly lost. We've discussed what to do about Lisa, who is now staying with a friend. Despite everything, my parents still feel a deep sense of responsibility for her. They are coming to terms with the fact that Lisa's behavior may be more than just manipulative, it could be indicative of a deeper psychological issue. We've agreed to explore the possibility of a mental health evaluation, but since Lisa is an adult, we can't force her into treatment. My parents plan to reach out to Lisa when they return home, hoping to have a calm, constructive conversation. I've advised them to meet her in a public place to minimize the risk of another violent outburst. We want Lisa to understand that this isn't about assigning blame, it's about addressing the pain and finding a way forward as a family. We're all hoping she'll recognize the love and concern behind this effort. For now, we're focusing on healing, one step at a time.